Welcome back, everyone. Today we are diving deep into something that feels almost old school, but is still incredibly relevant. The press release, those official announcements for launches, partnerships, big milestones.
Yeah, they're absolutely still the cornerstone for official comms, establishing credibility, getting the stories straight, crucial stuff.
Totally. And this is the big but, right? If your strategy just stops after you hit send on the wire service, well, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say you're leaving, maybe 80% of your potential reach just sitting there. The game has changed so fundamentally. It's not just one channel anymore.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. How do you actually use social media to amplify that press release, to create this massive multiplier effect?
Yeah, multiplier effect is a good way to put it.
We want to unpack how using these platforms strategically lets you kind of bypass the traditional media gatekeepers, talk directly to your audience, and really max out engagement and, importantly, get results you can actually measure.
Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with that big shift you mentioned. Think about the old way, right? Traditional distribution. Your message basically hit a wall. It was limited by, say, a newspaper circulation or magazine subscribers.
And you were totally dependent on a journalist deciding if your news was even newsworthy that day.
Exactly. You had to hope they'd pick it up. Now, social platforms give you that direct pipeline. It just blows those old boundaries away.
You don't need to wait for permission anymore. You essentially are the publisher.
Right. But that creates its own problem, doesn't it? If everyone is a publisher, how do you actually get heard above all the noise?
That's where that multiplier effect comes in, I think.
Precisely. It's the combination. You have the formal credibility of the traditional release, plus this dynamic social strategy, that synergy. It turns a flat announcement into something living, something that pushes itself out there.
And this is where the mechanics get kind of fascinating, the visibility part. Someone posts your news, maybe just a simple like or a comment.
Yeah, even a like.
That simple action signals to the algorithms, hey, this is interesting, and bam, it starts showing up in more feeds.
Exactly. It reduces the friction. Traditional media, lots of friction. Social media, it has momentum built in. But the real power, the engine of that multiplier, is the share.
The share.
Every single time someone shares that release, whether it's, on LinkedIn for their professional network or just on their personal Facebook.
They're basically introducing your news to a whole new circle, people you wouldn't have reached otherwise, potential customers, investors, even other media contacts maybe.
Exactly. Contacts you didn't even know existed or were relevant. We've seen cases where one really well-crafted post can generate more impressions in 24 hours than weeks of old-school outreach.
Okay, wait. Powerful, yes. But is it quality reach? If my boss only cares about actual leads or sales, how do I make sure that ripple effect isn't just, expensive noise?
That's a really critical point, and the answer lies in the conversation. Noise is just broadcasting one way. Quality engagement. That's a two-way street. When people start commenting, asking questions, tagging their colleagues, debating points, they're not just keeping the content alive longer. They're essentially self-qualifying. They're raising their hand saying, I'm interested.
So the comment section, which, let's be honest, sometimes gets dismissed as just chatter. It's actually part of the funnel, like qualifying leads.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And think about the feedback. You get real-time sentiment. You know instantly how people are reacting. You don't get that waiting, 3 weeks for some quarterly media monitoring report. It's immediate.
Okay, that makes sense. So that takes us to the how, the tactics. If we buy into this multiplier idea, we need to execute it right. And rule number 1 seems to be, you absolutely cannot just copy-paste the press release text everywhere.
Oh, God, no. Please don't do that. Our sources are really clear on this. One single press release.
Yeah.
That should ideally spawn 10, maybe 15 unique pieces of content tailored for different platforms.
Because each platform speaks its own language, right?
Totally. If you don't speak that native language, the algorithm's going to bury you. And honestly, the users will just scroll right past. You got to fit in.
All right, let's break it down. Starting with the visual giant, Instagram for PR. This has to be, as you say, a feast for the eyes. That dense press release PDF, dead on arrival here. So what should people be creating instead?
Think fast consumption. Visuals first. Quote cards are great. Pull out the most surprising statistic, the most impactful CEO quote. Infographics. Break down complex info from the release into, say, 3 or 4 simple, really hearable slides.
Okay, infographics, quote cards. What about stories?
Definitely use stories, especially for launches. Do a countdown timer. Run a poll. Which new feature are you most excited about? Maybe a quick Q&A with the product lead. It needs to feel polished, but also immediate and interactive.
Gotcha. Slick and visual. Now let's switch gears. What about a platform that's more about community and context, like Facebook engagement strategies? People don't scroll quite as fast there, do they?
No, it's a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook's user base often skews a bit older, maybe more willing to read. So yeah, you can use longer captions, really provide the background, the context, the why behind the announcement.
So more storytelling potential.
Absolutely. If the release is about, I don't know, a new green initiative, your Facebook post could be a mini story about the long-term community impact. And definitely use their tools like Facebook groups. Create a dedicated space around the new thing, foster discussion there.
Okay. But then there's the Wild West, TikTok storytelling. How does a formal corporate press release even survive there? It seems like oil and water.
It survives by becoming entertainment, basically. You have to distill that core message into something super engaging, usually 15 to 60 seconds max. The golden rule here is show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell. Example.
Okay, so if your release is about new software saving customers time, and don't just state the fact. Show a quick video, someone looking totally stressed, then using the software, then suddenly looking relaxed with free time. Maybe use a trending sound, even if it feels a bit less corporate. That authenticity, that native feel is what works on TikTok.
Right, fitting into the platform's culture. Okay, so from raw entertainment, let's pivot back to professional focus, Twitter, quick messaging. And I guess we should loop in Threads and Lusky here too, right? Seems like the same principle applies.
Yeah, exactly. Brevity and speed are key. You need punchy, quotable snippets. That formal headline from your press release probably won't work on Twitter.
So if the PR headline is like, Alpha Corp announces $10 million Series B funding, what's the Twitter version?
Something more like, boom, we just raised $10. Here's the hashtag one mistake we made in our pitch and how you can avoid it. Link in bio for the full story. See?
It offers immediate value, uses hashtags, creates curiosity.
Ah, the hook. Offer value up front. Exactly. And use threads. If your release has, say, 10 key data points, that's a perfect 10-tweet thread. Break it down, make it snackable.
Smart. Okay, last one in this section. LinkedIn B2B communication. This is where the suits hang out, the decision makers. How do we handle the press release there? Can't be quite as casual as Twitter, I assume.
Definitely not casual, but it needs to be more than just dropping the link. You must add professional commentary. Forget the corporate fluff. Focus squarely on the business implications. What's the industry impact? What are the cost savings? What strategic shifts does this signal?
So add your own analysis on top.
Yes, and use LinkedIn articles for longer thoughts. Position your announcement not just as news, but as evidence of a major trend your company is leading. And, critically, tag relevant companies, tag the investors, tag key people involved. Bring them into the conversation.
Okay, so we've tailored the content for each platform, but how do people actually find it, especially beyond their immediate network? This brings us to SEO, right?
Absolutely. Your press release, even the original one you might put on a wire service or your own newsroom, needs to do double duty. It has to be an SEO press release. That means thinking about keyword optimization right from the start.
Which immediately creates that dual headline challenge you mentioned earlier. You need one headline, or maybe variations, that search engines like Google will recognize because it has the right keywords.
Well, relevant.
But you also need those other headlines for social media that are punchy and make humans actually want to click. It's like you need different keys for different doors to the same room.
That's a great analogy. And this is why social media isn't just like a promotional afterthought anymore. It's actually part of your SEO strategy.
How so?
Well, when that optimized press release gets shared across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those shares, the comments, the likes, even saves, those are social signals. They basically tell search engines, hey, real people are finding this content valuable and engaging with it.
So social activity boosts search ranking.
It's a significant factor, yeah. It signals trust and relevance. It creates more entry points for people to discover your news through search.
Okay, makes sense. And you mentioned amplifying this, things like using keywords and captions and hashtags, alt text on images.
Right, basic SEO hygiene applied to social. And crucially, using those trackable URLs we talked about, UTM parameters.
Or yes, the tracking tags.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do you know if traffic came from, say, the Facebook post versus the LinkedIn article? It all just looks like direct or social in Google Analytics, which isn't very helpful.
Exactly. UTMs are like little digital fingerprints on each link. If someone clicks a link with a specific UTM code, you know precisely which post on which platform drove that visit to your website. Without that fingerprint, you're just guessing which channels are actually working.
That level of detail is essential for proving ROI, I bet. Okay, beyond the technical SEO side, there's the trust element. Our sources talk a lot about influencer collaboration PR.
Yeah, this is interesting. The idea is that getting an influencer, especially the right kind of influencer, to talk about your announcement, it transforms it. It goes from being a corporate statement, which people might be skeptical of,
to being more like a trusted recommendation from someone they follow.
Precisely. But the key insight here, and the sources are really strong on this, is that it's niche over numbers. Forget the giant celebrity with millions of followers who know nothing about your industry.
You're talking about micro-influencers.
Exactly. I remember a case study. A company spent a fortune on one big celeb post. Huge reach, practically zero impact on sales. Then they shifted strategy, worked with 5 smaller bloggers who were deep in that specific industry niche. Engagement went through the roof, like 300% higher. Our sources actually cite data showing that a micro-influencer with, say, just 5,000 really engaged followers can often deliver 3 times higher engagement rates than a mega-influencer with millions of disconnected ones.
Wow. Because their audience actually trusts their opinion on that specific topic.
All about that authentic connection, which, okay, leads to maybe the trickiest part. Authentic conversations. Brands love talking about authenticity, but how do you genuinely have an authentic conversation when you might get hundreds, even thousands of comments? Isn't it just glorified customer service pretending to be PR?
It could be, yeah. But the smart way to do it, I think, is to actually be conversational. Don't use robotic, scripted replies. Use natural language. Ask follow-up questions.
Well, if you even acknowledge criticism constructively, right?
Publicly. Exactly. That little bit of effort to respond like a human, not a corporate bot, it really humanizes the brand. It shifts the perception from some faceless company to like a responsive partner you can actually talk to.
Okay, so we've tailored the content. We've thought about SEO and trust. Now, maybe the most crucial part. How do we actually know if any of this is working? We need to prove it, right? Move beyond just hoping it works.
Yes, the data. We need concrete data to turn this from guesswork into a real strategy. So, what are the absolute essential PR performance metrics? The KPIs our listeners must track to see if this social amplification is paying off.
Right, and the focus has to be on metrics that show actual behavior, not just vanity numbers.
Yeah.
So first, engagement rates. That's likes, shares, comments, but also saves. Saves are a huge indicator that someone found the content valuable enough to reference later.
Okay, engagement, including saves. What else?
Second, referral traffic. Tracked using those UTM parameters we just discussed. Which specific social posts are actually driving people back to your website or landing page?
And that tells you which platforms are performing.
Exactly. High traffic from LinkedIn, but maybe low conversions on the landing page. That tells you something specific. Maybe the message is reaching the right people, but the landing page pitch isn't quite right for a B2B audience.
Got it. Metric 3.
Third, click-through rates, or CTR. That's the percentage of people who saw your post impressions and actually clicked the link. If you have tons of impressions but a really low CTR, your headline or your visual probably isn't compelling enough, needs fixing fast.
Makes sense. Measure the hook's effectiveness.
Fourth, you do still need to look at reach and impressions. That's your overall visibility, the scale of your potential audience.
Okay, and finally?
And finally, number 5, conversion metrics. This is the bottom line for many. How many of those visitors from social actually did the thing you wanted them to do? Download the white paper, sign up for the demo, make a purchase. You have to connect social activity to tangible business outcomes.
So it's not just about counting likes. It's about using all these numbers together to build a picture and then adjusting.
Yeah.
That's a feedback loop, right?
That is exactly the feedback loop. You use the analytics, Google Analytics, the native tools within platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn. You spot the patterns. Instagram carousels get 50% more clicks than single images. Or posting on Twitter at 7 p.m. Tuesday gives us the best engagement.
So you find what works.
And you replicate it. You stop just, throwing content out there hoping something sticks, and you start building on proven winning formulas for every single announcement. It becomes systematic.
It really does shift PR, doesn't it? From just being a broadcast, here's our news, to being this ongoing dynamic dialogue.
Completely. You're gauging sentiment in real time. You can see if a message isn't landing well and actually tweak it within hours, not weeks.
That ability to respond immediately.
It's the key. It turns people who might have just passively read your news into active participants. They feel heard. They engage more deeply. You're not just telling them something, you're inviting them into a conversation about your news. That's modern PR. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. Okay. That was definitely a deep dive into making press releases work much harder in today's world. Let's try and summarize the core idea. Basically, integrating social media isn't just nice to have. It's essential for expanding visibility, driving real, authentic engagement, and getting those measurable results that actually prove the value.
Right. And the way you do that isn't by spamming, but through really specific platform-native content. The visual stuff for Instagram, the professional deep dives for LinkedIn, the quick hits for Twitter.
And underpinning it all with smart SEO and tracking.
Exactly. So the actionable takeaway for you listening, stop the copy-pasting right now. Seriously, for your next press release, pick just 1 or 2 platforms where you know your audience actually spends time.
Just 1 or 2 to start.
Yeah, keep it manageable. Then consciously repurpose that release into content that feels right for those specific platforms. Speak their language. And crucially, start tracking those UTM-powered metrics we talked about. See what actually moves the needle.
Meet your audience where they are, speak their language, and measure everything.
That's the formula.
Okay, so here's the final thought we want to leave you chewing on. If the real value of a press release is shifting, if it's less about getting that single placement in a major newspaper and more about the level of genuine conversational buzz it creates across social media, what does that actually mean for how we even define news itself in the future?
That's a big question.
It's nothing to think about as you plan that next campaign. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.